consider the mind's ability to combine words and sounds. When someone sneezes, you feel obligated to say bless you. But if you sound the syllables, does your subconscious mind also make connection to the phrase, be less you? Or the most commonly used word, hello, which theoretically could also say, hell, low. English as a whole has a lot of questionable sentences, or rather words that we could easily dismiss. Then the word grammar shows up, dating back to old Latin books on syntax and diction, specifically ancient magic books of Europe which contain instructions to summon demons known as grimoires, a French word derivative for grammar, meaning the so-called grammar which we use to have precise communications in English, originates from a magic spellbook. And ironically, we also say spelling to spell words. This all brings up a critical point, better said by the famous Nikola Tesla. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. The pronunciation and sound of words affects the matter around us, demonstrated in a clear manner using the semantic experiment, where sound on plates that vibrate at specific frequencies can cause geometric patterns. Coincidentally, one of the most impactful ways to affect a person's emotions is none other than music. Will hand the light to you, will you bow to Satan? An extremely eerie sentence that can be thrown very easily, until you realize this is a lyric made by the infamous Katy Perry in her popular song Firework. Not convinced? How about another song of hers, Dark Horse? Better choose carefully, which backwards says, seals the fates of Lucifer. The song actually has a lot of backmasking, but another clear example is her saying, so you wanna play with magic, and backwards says, he's my devil, you know, you're Satan. Rest assured, this isn't limited to mainstream artists, but you could find your beloved politician in a similar phenomenon called reversal speech, reversing what's said, just without the music, making it rather more evident. More famously acted upon by the ex-president Barack Obama, when he created a campaign slogan saying, yes we can, which reverse says, thank you Satan.
A creed at the core of every American whose story is not yet written. Yes we can. Yes we did. Yes we can.
Thank you, sir.
Or another ex-president Ronald Reagan saying, perhaps we need some outside universal threat, which reverses to, I must name new spell.
We often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat.
Dimension as a topic is quite common but often dismissed as fiction. But what if it wasn't? With one eye, you can see in 2D. With two eyes, you can see depth, so 3D. Meaning we just need another eye and we will be able to see the fourth spatial dimension. It's not that simple, but also not that hard to comprehend. Suppose I said I could move in the fourth dimension. You could watch me move up and down, left and right, forwards and backwards. But I can also move in the directions Ana and Kata, which are orthogonal to the other three dimensions. Assuming that I remained a three-dimensional object, I could say I am now going to move in the Kata direction, and I would instantly vanish from your three-dimensional point of view as I move through the fourth dimension. Imagine a flatlander, a circle, living in their two-dimensional plane suddenly moving in the third dimension. They would instantly vanish from the plane and could now be said to be in the third dimension. This was just a glimpse of a subreddit trying to pinpoint possible evidences, but so far, only theories. I'm not a physician, nor do I study time and space as a whole, But as far as proof goes, we have one which was mildly shocking to say the least. You see, in order to visit a hypothetical dimension, you would obviously need a portal or some sort of gateway. And it turns out they do exist. Well, sort of. A NASA-funded research has figured out how to find them. They are places where the magnetic field of Earth connects to the magnetic field of the Sun, creating an uninterrupted path leading from our planet to the Sun's atmosphere 93 million miles away. Only problem is, magnetic portals are invisible, unstable, and elusive. They open and close without a warning, and there is no signpost to guide us in. So in other words, they do exist, but not within our reach. However, this European Organization for Nuclear Research had a different idea. If we can't find those portals, why not create them? CERN, established in 1954, based in Milan on the France and Switzerland border. It is said to be one of the most controversial organizations out there that's in the public. Buckle up, because it only goes downhill from here. It all started in September 10, 2008, the launch of the LHC, also known as the Large Hadron Collider, despite the alarmism from various media outlets and outspoken people who claimed that an Earth-devouring black hole could be formed within this project. The science community were confident that any black hole forming would be microscopic and last only a nanosecond. 9 days later, on September 19, 2008, the unthinkable happened. It was thought impossible, but during a routine collision, a massive black hole opened up unexpectedly, engulfing the Earth we live in. The authorities covered up the incident, blaming it on a so-called magnetic quench to avoid the utter panic that would no doubt ensure. Due to the warping of space-time and bizarre mechanics of a black hole, it seems as though over 16 years have passed and everything is fine. However, scientists believe outside of the black hole, it is still 19th September 2008 and possibly only a few seconds have elapsed, introducing us to the theory of an alternative universe. You know how the Mandela effect was a big thing back in the days, with big conspiracy theorists including the likes of Shane Dawson mentioning it, makes you think about how most of it started right after the LHC. We accomplished that thanks to Donald Trump's uncle. How, you may ask? Let me introduce you to John G. Trump, a PhD renowned electrical engineer from MIT, who also taught at MIT from 1936 to 1973. The reason he's important is his involvement with Nikola Tesla's case. You see, at the height of World War II, Tesla claimed that he invented a powerful death beam that could destroy attacking aircraft. He proposed a system of beam weapons to protect the borders of the United States and other European nations. When he died, most of Tesla's technical papers mysteriously disappeared, and many have not been found since. Or were they found? Thing is, the morning after Tesla's death, his nephew Sava Kazanovich hurried to his uncle's room at the Hotel New Yorker. By the time he arrived, Tesla's body had already been removed, and Kazanovich suspected that someone had already gone through his uncle's effects. Technical papers were missing as long as a black notebook he knew Tesla kept, a notebook with several hundred pages, some of which were marked government. P.E. Foxworth, assistant director of the New York FBI office, was calling in to investigate. According to Foxworth, the government was vitally interested in preserving Tesla's papers. 2 days after Tesla's death, representatives of the Office of Alien Property went to his room at the New Yorker Hotel and seized all his possessions. And here comes Dr. John G. Trump. He was called in to analyze the Tesla's papers in OAP custody following a 3-day investigation. Dr. Trump concluded his thoughts and efforts during at least the past 15 years were primarily of a speculative, philosophical, and somewhat promotional character, often concerned with the production and wireless transmission of power, but did not include new, sound, workable principles or methods for realizing such results. So in other words, everything was based on theory, though that was not what Tesla was really known for. and that's why I find it hard to believe that John himself didn't make copies of some sort for a future benefit of the country without mentioning it to the government, whom will most likely use it in their usual evil ways like they did with Oppenheimer, with even some claiming that the government itself gave John the files for him to keep safe and sealed. Funnily enough, we have barely scratched the surface. In 1890, author Ingersoll Lockwood wrote 2 books that highlighted with pinpoint accuracy the current American political situation. These 2 books are Baron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey and The Last President. In Last President 1896, there is an underdog that ran for president when no one believed he would win. He lived on 5th Avenue in New York. Trump Tower is actually on 5th Avenue. And to make it more fun, guess who's president at the time of this video? The reason I'm mentioning this is the fact that none of this feels like a coincidence but rather a plan. But hey, let's circle back a bit. I understand that some may find most of this hard to believe. And don't worry, I have something for the non-believers too. Thing is, CERN isn't an ordinary organization. It's linked to multiple conspiracies beginning with its logo, 666, hidden in plain sight, not convinced, statue of Shiva, also known as the god of destruction, and CERN itself. You need video proof to be convinced? How about I show you a little party they hosted? The guy recording doesn't seem too content with it. I mean, they said it was a prank. A ritual done in front of the statue is now a prank. Well, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Though I wonder, was this trailer for Symmetry also a prank? Fairly similar to the statue of Shiva, don't you think? Or maybe I can show you an opening ceremony for the Gotthard base tunnel in Switzerland, which was heavily linked to CERN. June 1st, 2016, CERN workers opening a portal for Lucifer and his legions of demons, Lucifer letting his minions roam free. And on June 24, 2016, CERN begins Project Awake and opens an actual portal over Geneva, Switzerland. But hey, it's just a prank. Back to the topic, a few questions could definitely be apparent. What if time travel does exist? How does it work? What proof do we have that it does? Well, my friend, here comes another rabbit hole with the introduction of John Titor. On November 2nd in the year 2000, a username called timetravel_ made a post in the Time Institute forum claiming he was a time traveler who not only provided us with how time travel exists and what are the necessary tools to do so, but he had a couple of predictions he made which included none other than CERN. John's story is very lengthy, but I will only mention the relevant factors which relate to CERN. To begin with, in order to grasp the idea of time travel, you have to tackle the consequences it may have. For example, it all comes down to a phenomenon called the butterfly effect. It's a theory where a tiny change in one part of a system can cause a huge, non-linear effect elsewhere. So if I travel back in the past, if I decide to change the events of a certain birth, meaning I avoid a couple ever meeting together, their children would simply cease to exist for starters. With that being said, John's predictions were many, and although many were creepily correct, most of them were wrong, until you consider the butterfly effect I just mentioned. John's journey consisted of him being an American soldier in the year 2036, traveling back to 1975 to retrieve an IBM 5100 computer, which was needed to debug various legacy computer programs that existed in 2036, then stopping in the year 2000 for personal reasons, in which he fulfilled those reasons but decided to tease us with his existence. If I change a couple of things in the past, certain things will either be delayed or not even happen, which is why in this case, the reason why most predictions he made didn't occur was mainly because his interaction with us either sent the events to another timeline, which is hard to believe but could be theorized, or something more believable, which is that everything was delayed by 12 years exactly. Let's bring the second theory down. John's 2008 is our 2020, John's 2012 is our 2024. John's 2015 is our 2027, and so on. There was a civil war in the United States that started in 2017. That conflict flares up and down for 10 years. The major problems in the world event start with the West becoming unstable due to poor US foreign policy designs. This leads to chaos in the US around the 2016 presidential election. Israel is not ready for an all-out war, only for defense. As Western support for Israel weakens, its neighbors gain confidence to attack. Both sides may resort to weapons of mass destruction. The Middle East war is just one part of a larger, upcoming conflict, not the main cause. In 2027, Russia launched a nuclear strike against the major cities in the US, China, and Europe. The US counterattacks. The US cities were destroyed, along with the American Empire. Thus we, and the country, won. First of all, everything mentioned so far can easily be fact-checked to be correct with a simple Google search or a trip down memory lane. The only one awaiting us is the 2027 nuclear war, which by the looks of it, doesn't seem far-fetched. Furthermore, John claims CERN created a micro black hole in 2001, or more like 2013, and will create a time machine in 2034. And with a few searches, I was able to find an extensive document made by CERN themselves, giving a summary on their discoveries on 2013. It consisted of so many things, but the one that caught my eye was the shutdown of the LHC for upgrades, and their research which used the data collected from the LHC to explore phenomena that could go beyond the standard model. This included searches for evidence of supersymmetry, extra dimensions, and dark matter. Coincidental? At this point, I highly doubt. Given everything John proves, is it really hard to believe they will make a breakthrough in time travel? That's if they haven't done so already. Digging and researching hours upon hours made it easier to believe that they are up to more evil than good. If of course, there is any good to begin with. As we descend deeper into the rabbit hole of secret organizations, theoretical physics, and the mystery of higher dimensions, it becomes apparent that what we know barely scratches the surface of what might be possible. From CERN's enigmatic experiments to the elusive idea of time travel, we are left with more questions than answers. Perhaps the truth lies beyond our current understanding, waiting in the shadows of dimensions we can't yet perceive. But what if the path we're on is indeed a gateway to hell? What awaits us as we take the next step? Brace yourself for what's to come. This journey is far from over. Language, dimensions, time travel, and much more. They seem to know everything we see, hear, and do. But what if I told you that you also know everything they see, hear, and do? On the journey of discovering what's hidden in plain sight, we stumble upon a beloved character that made up most of our childhood, Super Mario. But more specifically, Mario 64. Notoriously known for revolutionizing the gaming industry in several factors, from the 3D platforming to the innovative camera system, not to mention the memorable levels and music which brought a unique theme and a set of challenges that set the tone. Each level made for a different experience, and the game begins with Mario entering a castle as he is greeted by ominous laughter from Bowser, who announces that he has taken control of the castle and trapped everyone inside the walls. Inside the castle, Mario finds himself in a grand hall alongside the muted atmosphere surrounded by mysterious paintings. What we notice right away is the Masonic Hall, alongside a checkerboard floor, highly resembling the meeting rooms and halls of Freemasons. And the coins that you collect, they are actually pentacles, better resembling Tarot and occult symbolism. Take it as if you play a role of a Mercury-type character, traveling into the earth and between realms. The levels? It varies from an owl instructing you to look into a shadow, and we know how owl as a symbol is often classified with a secret society, or a level where there are enemies as big eyes that watch you, and the boss being a giant eye which in order to kill him, you have to let him watch you then circumambulate him. At some point in the game, in order for you to get to the next level, you are forced to look into this mirror and observe for the first time the camera that has been apparently watching you the entire game. It was initially introduced for a second when the game starts, but this is the first time you see him during gameplay, and the game forces you to notice and passively interact with him. This is breaking the fourth wall and reminding the player they are being observed. The context of this part will make a little more sense later in this chapter, as we bring up a mysterious tactic these elites use. We can also take a small glimpse of other symbolism in the franchise itself. For example, Mario's comic book, Super Mario and the Night of Horror, a story involving Wario being the antagonist of Mario, making a deal with Abigail, in other words, the devil, to manipulate Mario's princess Peach to fall in love with Wario. It's a questionable comic to say the least, though the most creepy aspect of the franchise seems to be their movie, which was released in 1993, and it showcases the theory which makes up this chapter. Now that we have covered most of what makes the franchise extremely symbolic and rather demonic, some of you may ask the following questions. Why would they show us those symbols? Or why would they give us a hint on the plans that they have for us? Wouldn't that give it away and spoil their plan? Those would make for valid questions. And the answer is there, right in front of you. Era of innovation and change, the mid-1990s. A significant cultural shift with music, film and television, what seemingly looks like a peaceful time. Although there is some mild suspicions of a secret society, it was just a theory that you often get laughed at for. 1994, you stumble upon a cards game that fueled all your theories. Illuminati New World Order. With over 300 cards, they were interesting to say the least, but it wasn't enough to convince anyone around you, as most of these cards don't have much significance. Though one card caught your attention. Terrorist Nuke. You thought it was weird they bring up an event which happened in 1993, but simply played it off as a distasteful joke, and how it's fictional considering the bombing happened in the parking garage, not the actual Twin Towers. June 14, 1997. As you were watching television of the latest documentary called Path to Paradise, the untold story of the World Trade Center bombing, the ending scene gave you a weird look. As Ramzi Youssef was flying beside the Twin Towers, he says,
"Next time we'll bring them both down."
Another distasteful joke you said in your head. Fast forward to June 28, 2001. As a conspiracy theorist yourself, you were listening on radio to your favorite theorists, Bill Cooper. Only this time he made a claim which seemed very outrageous and controversial.
A reporter from CNN and his little camera crew got into Osama bin Laden's secret hideout and conducted an interview. If you don't believe me, tune into CNN. They're probably running it right now as I'm speaking. And if you believe it, you are one of the stupidest jerks that ever lived on the face of this earth. And whatever is going to happen that they're going to blame on Osama bin Laden, don't you even believe it.
Has been a plane crash on the southern tip of Manhattan. You're looking at the World Trade Center. We understand that a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center. We don't know anything more than that. We don't know if it was a commercial aircraft.
You were speechless, but at the same time had more questions than ever. What Bill Cooper said immediately came back in mind, just as they claimed Osama bin Laden was the terrorist in question. So you decide to finally take a few steps to understand what's going on. You browse through the internet and find multiple subliminal messages scattered around multiple TV shows, advertisements, movies and more. One show caught your attention, The Simpsons, whom is theorized to have a lot of predictions about recent events, aired an episode called The City of New York vs. Homer Simpson. released in September 21st, 1997. Everyone shows one image of the episode where a magazine shows 9/11 alongside a $sign indicating it was indeed in September 11th. That was about it, until you actually decided to give that very episode a watch. During the episode, as Margie and her kids were headed to New York, they ride a bus called Sit and Stare, and upon arrival, she says,
"Wake up everyone, we're almost there."
In another shot, Homer indirectly makes a triangle with his hand on the nails of his tires, making out what's obviously known as the Illuminati. While Homer was still fighting off his car being semi-towed, he takes a look at the number he has to dial to get his car unlocked. But wait, they must have shown this shot for a specific reason, right? You tried adding the numbers up. 212 plus 555. You get 767. You thought maybe another 9/11 reference, but I guess not. Now hold on. It isn't the first time you hear the number 767. This is oddly specific. Then a shot of clothes hanging. Counting them you get 9. And the last piece of clothing are boots which make up the numbers 11. Or maybe Margie with another line saying,
"I'm so glad we took the subway. Laser wart removal. Wow, the future is here."
Hey, where's Bart?
As you dig further, you found more and more clues, but then you're hit with a question. Why would they tell us what they are going to do? And finally, you have cracked the theory and answered your question. What's been right in front of us the entire time only seems to push us back even further. It's the theory of karmic retribution. They believe that if they tell us what they are going to do, they will avoid the consequences, aka the karma that follows them after. Let's imagine two people run a poisonous apple stand. One has a sign that says free apples, and one that says free poisonous apples. If you were to eat an apple from the free apple stand and die, the man behind the stand will be arrested for murder. Whereas if you were to die after eating the apple from the free poisonous apple stand, it would be ruled as suicide. Do you see what I'm getting at here? What about cigarettes? They clearly indicate they cause you cancer, yet you consume them and no one is arrested for selling them. Would you be surprised if they started doing that for more dangerous drugs? It's time to start being open-minded and consider the fact that maybe life isn't all rainbows and sunshine, and your government most likely doesn't actually care about you. Neither do the celebrities whom you worship, because trust me, as we can clearly see nowadays, they are not as innocent as you make them out to be. But most importantly, open your eyes and distinguish whether is it really a coincidence or a plan set decades or even centuries ago by a secret society that used to and still indeed rules the world.